The first wolf's eyes were blue. The second wolf's eyes were gold. By the 20th wolf, Sarah stopped counting eye colors and started praying she had enough bandages for them all, because every single one was dying. The blizzard had been howling for 3 days straight, the kind of storm the old ones whispered about in warnings. Sarah Ashwood had stockpiled wood, sealed the drafts in her cabin, and settled in with a book and hot tea, thinking she'd wait it out like she'd waited out everything else in her life, alone. Then the scratching started at her door. She'd ignored it at first. Could have been branches. Could have been the wind playing tricks. But when the scratching turned to a thud, like a body collapsing against the wood, her healer instincts kicked in before her common sense could stop her. The wolf on her porch was massive, his coat matted with blood and snow. Blue eyes stared up at her with a mix of pain and surprise, as if he hadn't expected the door to actually open. Sarah's breath caught. Those wounds, 3 parallel gashes across his ribs, weren't from any normal fight. "Damn it," she whispered, already reaching for him. She'd barely dragged him inside when another scratch came at the door. The second wolf had gold eyes and similar wounds. Then came a third. A fourth. They kept coming through the storm like ghosts, each one more torn up than the last, each one looking at her with that same desperate wildness that made her chest ache. Her cabin became a war zone of blood and bandages. Sarah worked without thinking, her hands moving through treatments she'd learned from books and instinct. The wolves snarled when she touched them, snapped at her reaching hands, but they didn't bite. Not really. They were too weak, too far gone. "I know it hurts," she murmured to a gray female whose breathing came in wet, rattling gasps. "I know you don't trust me. But you came here for a reason." The wolves watched her with hostile eyes, communicating with each other in growls and ear flicks that she couldn't quite read. Pack language. Command structures. Things an Omega outcast had never been taught. She'd been thrown out of her birth pack at 16 for being too weak, too soft. No good for breeding or fighting. Her mother hadn't even argued. 8 years later, here she was, harboring what had to be rogues in the middle of nowhere. If any official pack found out, they'd kill her for treason. She was stitching up wolf number 12 when the black wolf appeared. He didn't scratch. He simply stood in her open doorway, snow swirling around him like he'd materialized from the storm itself. The other wolves' heads snapped toward him, and the entire energy in the room shifted. Several tried to rise, whimpering. One actually managed to lower his head in submission despite bleeding from his shoulder. Sarah froze, needle in hand. The black wolf was enormous, easily the largest she'd ever seen. His fur was midnight dark except for silver streaks along his muzzle and ears, like frost had touched him and never melted. But his eyes, amber, ancient, burning with an intensity that made her stomach flip, those eyes held something that went beyond animal. He took one step inside, and his legs buckled. "No." Sarah dropped her needle and dove for him, catching his massive head before it hit the floor. He was heavy as hell and warm despite the snow melting off his coat. His eyes rolled back, and she saw the wounds. They were different from the others. Worse. 3 gashes across his ribs, yes, but these ones oozed something black and viscous that made her gag. Poison. Dark magic. She'd read about it but never seen it. "Who did this to you?" she whispered. The wolf's amber eyes found hers for just a moment. There was something there, recognition maybe, or warning, before they closed. The other wolves began to growl, a low rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. The black wolf's breathing was getting shallower. Sarah looked at her supplies spread across the floor. She had maybe enough essence of silverroot to treat 2 more wolves. Maybe. The black wolf needed all of it and then some if he was going to survive the night. But the others were dying too. The gray female. The young russet male who couldn't be more than a yearling. If she used everything on this one wolf. The black wolf exhaled, and it sounded final. Sarah grabbed the silver root. "Sorry," she told the others. "But he's your leader, isn't he? I can see it. You all know it." She worked through the night in a haze of exhaustion and desperation. The poison in the black wolf's wounds fought her every step of the way, burning her fingers when she touched it, making her head swim with dark whispers that weren't quite words. She packed the gashes with silver root paste, stitched what she could, and forced a tincture down his throat that would have killed a normal wolf. He wasn't normal. She knew that now. The other wolves settled as she worked, as if her saving him meant something more than she understood. A few even let her treat them afterward with her dwindling supplies, no longer snapping at her hands. Dawn was breaking, gray light filtering through the snow-covered windows, when Sarah finally collapsed against the wall. Every muscle screamed. Her hands were stained black from the poison and red from everyone's blood. She couldn't tell anymore which was which. The cabin was silent except for breathing. 20 wolves sprawled across her floor like a furry, wounded carpet. Alive. Most of them, anyway. She was drifting off when she heard voices. Can't believe we lost him. Male, rough with grief. The king. Gone. Just like that. We don't know he's dead. Another male, younger. Maybe he made it out. You saw those wounds, Kieran. Nobody survives Shadow Collective poison. They made sure of that. Sarah's eyes cracked open. 2 men stood near her fireplace, naked except for the blankets they'd found in her linen closet. They must have shifted. The older one had the same gray coat as the female wolf she'd treated, now in human form, revealing silver-shot dark hair and a scar across his jaw. The younger one was the russet yearling, now a lanky kid who couldn't be more than 19. The ambush was planned, gray hair continued. They knew our patrol routes. Knew exactly where to hit us. If it wasn't for the storm, they would have finished us all. What do we do now? Without the king, the treaty lines will collapse. Every pack will be at each other's throats within weeks. We survive. We find whoever's left of the Royal Guard. And we make the Shadow Collective pay for what they've done. Sarah's gaze drifted to the black wolf still unconscious by the fire. The king. They were talking about him. This wolf she'd spent all night saving, this massive creature whose presence commanded a room even in sleep, he was the Alpha King. And he was in a coma. His scent was wrong, she realized now. Muted. Hidden. Even his aura, that sense of power that should have been crushing in its intensity, was veiled behind something that felt like dark spellwork. The curse wasn't just killing him. It was hiding him. Should we tell the Omega? Kieran asked, nodding toward where Sarah sat against the wall. Greyhair shook his head. She doesn't need to know. Safer for her if she doesn't. We'll move out as soon as the storm breaks, take our wounded, leave her some gold for her trouble. She saved our lives. Which is why we won't put a target on her back by telling her she's been harboring the most wanted wolf in the territories. Sarah let her eyes close again, feigning sleep, her heart pounding. The Alpha King. The actual king. The wolf every pack answered to, the one who held the fragile peace between territories, the one whose very existence kept the wolf world from descending into chaos. And he was dying on her cabin floor. She should have been terrified. Should have been planning how to get them all out before someone discovered what she'd done. But all she could think about was the black wolf's amber eyes finding hers in that moment before he collapsed, and the way something in her chest had twisted in response. Like recognition. Like fate. Outside, the storm held on. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. The storm didn't break for 4 days. Sarah had lived through plenty of northern winters, but this blizzard was something else entirely, a living, breathing wall of white that turned the world beyond her cabin into nothing but howling darkness. Which meant 20 wounded wolves and an unconscious Alpha King weren't going anywhere. Not that she'd told them about that last part. By the second day, the wolves started shifting. She'd wake to find men instead of animals sprawled across her floor, all of them looking vaguely embarrassed and very naked. She'd learned to keep her eyes up and throw blankets first, ask questions later. The first to fully shift was the gray-haired man she'd heard talking that first dawn. He introduced himself as Commander Darius Kova, second in command of the Royal Guard, and he did it with the kind of formal bow that made Sarah deeply uncomfortable. "You saved our lives, Miss Ashwood. Sarah Ashwood." She handed him a proper shirt this time, salvaged from her father's old trunk. "And I'm just a healer. It's what I do." "An Omega healer," said a sharp-featured woman with copper hair, now sitting up despite the bandages wrapped around her ribs. "Living alone in the Forgotten Territories. That's unusual." "So is a pack of dying wolves showing up at my door in the middle of a blizzard," Sarah shot back. "I didn't ask questions." "Maybe you shouldn't either." The woman, Lieutenant Kira something, smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "Fair enough. Except they did ask questions. Lots of them." By day 3, Sarah had been interrogated more thoroughly than when her old pack had put her on trial. Where was she from? How long had she been here? Why was she alone? What pack did she belong to? "No pack," she finally snapped, grinding herbs with more force than necessary. "I'm Omega. We don't get the luxury of belonging." "Omegas are protected by pack law," said Kieran, the young russet-haired guard who'd been friendlier than the others. "They're supposed to be controlled," Sarah interrupted. "Bred. Traded. Thanks, but I'll take exile." The guards exchanged glances that made her skin prickle. They were warriors, all of them. Even injured, they moved with deadly grace, their eyes constantly scanning for threats. And lately, those eyes kept landing on her. It got worse when Lieutenant Kira found her books. Well. Kira emerged from Sarah's bedroom, uninvited, holding a leather-bound tome that Sarah's heart sank to see. Advanced Shadow Magic and its Healing Applications. Forbidden Rites of the Old Pacts. "These are illegal texts, Omega." "They're research," Sarah said tightly. "I'm a healer. I need to understand what I'm treating. Or what you're practicing." Commander Darius took the book, his expression darkening as he flipped through pages marked with Sarah's notes. "Some of these rituals require blood sacrifice. Others can curse an entire pack line. I've never performed them. I study them to counter them. Like you countered the poison in our wounds?" Kira's eyes were hard. "Awfully convenient that you knew exactly how to treat Shadow Collective magic." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. "If I was working with the Shadow Collective, why would I save you? Why not let you die and collect whatever bounty they're offering? Maybe you're playing a longer game. Or maybe," Kieran cut in quietly, "she's just a healer who saved our asses, and we're being paranoid dicks about it." Darius held up a hand for silence, still studying Sarah with those calculating gray eyes. "There's something you're not telling us." "Everything," Sarah thought. "I'm not telling you everything." Her gaze flicked involuntarily to the black wolf still lying by the fire. For days, and he hadn't stirred. But he was healing, she could see it in the way his breathing had strengthened, how the poison-black veins beneath his fur were fading to gray. And last night, during the full moon's peak, she'd felt it. Power. Raw and ancient and absolutely terrifying, radiating from him in waves that had made every other wolf in the cabin whimper and bow their heads in their sleep. She'd sat beside him all night, one hand on his massive shoulder, whispering things she didn't understand herself. "Stay hidden," she'd murmured. "Stay safe. They're not ready to lose you." The wolf's ear had flicked, just once. Like he'd heard her. "We found something else," Kira said, pulling out a journal that made Sarah's blood run cold. Her journal. The private one she kept locked in her desk drawer. "That's mine. You had no right. You were exiled from the Crescent Moon Pack 5 years ago," Darius read aloud, his voice flat. "Refused a mating claim from Beta Marcus Thorne. The Pack Council voted to cast you out for defying Pack hierarchy and, what's this? Accusing the Beta of assault without proof. Sarah's face burned. Those words, written in her own shaking hand 5 years ago, felt like daggers now. He tried to force a bond, she said quietly. Said I belonged to him whether I wanted it or not. When I fought back, when I told the Alpha what he'd done, they said I was lying. Said an Omega should be grateful for a Beta's attention. Kieran swore under his breath. Even Kira's expression softened slightly. But Darius kept reading. Your father was Samuel Ashwood, guard captain of Crescent Moon. He was executed for treason, selling pack secrets to rival territories. Darius looked up. That's your bloodline, Omega. Traitor's daughter. The cabin went silent except for the wind howling outside. My father was innocent, Sarah said, her voice shaking. They framed him. I don't know who or why, but he would never. They always say that, Kira murmured. He was innocent. Sarah's hands trembled as she grabbed the journal back. He was investigating something that scared him. He kept saying the pack was compromised, that someone high up was working with rogues. Then suddenly he was arrested, evidence appeared out of nowhere, and they killed him before he could defend himself. And you expect us to believe that? Darius's voice was hard. A traitor's daughter, living in exile with forbidden books, in the exact territory where the Shadow Collective operates? This is looking worse by the minute. Commander. A new voice, deep and measured, came from the corner. A massive man with a scarred face and military short black hair stepped forward, Captain Wren, who'd been silent up until now. May I have a word? Darius nodded curtly. The two men stepped outside onto the porch, and Sarah could hear their low voices through the door but not the words. For what it's worth, Kieran said softly, I don't think you're a traitor. You could have let us die. Could have poisoned us while we were weak. You didn't. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Sarah muttered, wrapping her arms around herself. When Darius and Wren returned, something had shifted in the commander's expression. Not friendly, but less hostile. Captain Wren has provided some context, Darius said carefully. We'll discuss your father's case later. For now, we have bigger problems. The storm is finally breaking, which means he didn't get to finish. The attack came fast and without warning. One moment, Sarah was reaching for bandages to change the Black Wolf's dressing. The next, the cabin's rear window exploded inward in a shower of glass and white fur. Wolves. Massive, wrong-smelling wolves with eyes that glowed sickly green. Shadow Collective. Defensive positions. Darius roared, already shifting mid-leap. The other guards followed, wounded or not, their bodies flowing from human to wolf in heartbeats. Sarah hit the floor as chaos erupted. Snarls, screams, the wet sound of flesh tearing. A green-eyed wolf lunged for her, and she rolled, grabbing a poker from the fireplace and swinging it like a club. It connected with a skull-cracking thud, and the wolf yelped but kept coming. Then Captain Wren was there in wolf form, twice the size he should have been, tackling her attacker and ripping its throat out with brutal efficiency. Get behind the king, someone shouted. Kieran, maybe, she couldn't tell anymore, and Sarah scrambled toward the black wolf still lying motionless by the fire. 3 Shadow Collective wolves broke through the guard's line, heading straight for him. For their king. They knew. Somehow, they knew who he was. Sarah threw herself across the black wolf's body, poker raised, knowing she was about to die but unable to stop herself. You want him, she snarled. Go through me. The lead attacker's eyes gleamed with malicious amusement. It gathered itself to pounce. And the black wolf moved. Sarah felt it first as a vibration through her whole body, like the earth itself was shifting. Then heat, blazing and fierce, rolling off the wolf beneath her in waves. The air pressure in the cabin changed, became thick and heavy and hard to breathe. The black wolf stood. But he wasn't just standing. He was changing, his body contorting in ways that shouldn't be possible, bones cracking and reforming. Not a full shift to human. Something else. something in between. Something terrifying. His front legs elongated, became arms. Human arms corded with muscle and ending in claws like knives. His back legs bent backward, digitigrade and powerful. His skull reshaped itself, still wolf but larger, more pronounced, with fangs that were too long and too sharp. His fur rippled with silver light, and his eyes, those amber eyes, burned like molten gold. A hybrid. A true alpha hybrid, the form that only the most powerful wolves could achieve, and even then only at the cost of their sanity. But this wolf wasn't losing his mind. He was in perfect, terrifying control. The Shadow Collective wolves froze. One tried to run. It didn't make it 2 steps before the hybrid moved, faster than Sarah's eyes could track, and took its head off with one sweep of those impossible claws. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. The hybrid tore through the attackers like they were made of paper, his movements economical and brutally efficient. No wasted motion. No mercy. When one wolf tried to use magic, green light gathering around its jaws, the hybrid caught it by the throat and crushed its windpipe before the spell could form. Sarah couldn't look away. Couldn't breathe. This was the Alpha King. This was Alexander Voronar, the wolf that held the entire territory together through fear and power and absolute dominance. In under a minute, every Shadow Collective wolf was dead. The cabin fell silent except for harsh breathing, the guards and the hybrids. Slowly, the royal guards shifted back to human form, every single one of them dropping to one knee and bowing their heads. "My king," Darius rasped. "You're alive." The hybrid stood among the carnage, blood dripping from his claws, his massive chest heaving. Then his legs buckled, and he went down hard. Sarah didn't think. She lunged forward, catching him before he hit the ground, or trying to. He was too heavy, too big, and they both went down in a tangle of limbs and fur. The guards moved to help, but froze when the hybrid's eyes snapped open. He stared at Sarah. Just stared, with those burning amber eyes, and she felt something lock into place in her chest. Something that had been waiting her whole life to click home. The hybrid's clawed hand came up, impossibly gentle, and cupped her face. His thumb traced her cheekbone, leaving a smear of blood that should have terrified her but didn't. His mouth opened, revealing those terrible fangs, and he spoke. His voice was wrong, too deep, layered with harmonics that resonated in her bones. "Mine." One word. Just one word, rough and possessive and absolutely certain. Then his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed fully, his body already shifting back to the black wolf. The change was smoother this time, less violent, but it left him completely unconscious and burning with fever. Sarah knelt there, her face still tingling where he'd touched her, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "What," Kira whispered, "the actual fuck was that?" "That," Darius said slowly, his eyes moving between Sarah and the unconscious king, "was an alpha claim. The king just claimed her." "He doesn't even know her," Kieran protested. "He's been in a coma for 4 days." "Doesn't matter." Captain Wren's voice was quiet but certain. "His wolf knows." "That's enough." Sarah's hands were shaking as she checked the king's pulse, feeling it race beneath her fingers. Fever. The shift had taken too much out of him, torn open healing wounds, pushed his body past its limits. "Help me get him back by the fire," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "He needs." "What he needs," Darius interrupted, "is an explanation. From you." His gray eyes were hard again, suspicious. "How did you know?" "That he was the king?" "You knew, didn't you? That's why you used all your supplies on him instead of rationing them." Sarah met his gaze without flinching. "I knew." "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because you would have taken him and run the second the storm broke." She looked down at the wolf, the king, who just called her his. "And he wasn't ready. He needed time to heal. He needed you," Wren finished quietly. "He needed you." The other guards were staring at her now with a mixture of shock and something else. Respect, maybe. Or fear. The king hasn't claimed anyone in over a decade, Kira said. There are rumors he can't. That his wolf is too damaged, too dominant to accept a mate. Well, his wolf just made itself pretty fucking clear, Kieran muttered. Darius was still watching Sarah, his expression unreadable. Finally, he knelt beside her and helped lift the king's unconscious form. We need to talk, he said. About your father. About who really betrayed the Pax 15 years ago. But first. He glanced at Captain Wren. Tell her. Wren moved closer, and Sarah noticed the way he looked at her, not with suspicion, but with something like grief. Your father, Samuel Ashwood, was my mentor, Wren said quietly. He taught me everything about being a guard, about honor and loyalty. And he was investigating a conspiracy, one that went all the way to the top of multiple pack hierarchies. He found evidence that someone was feeding information to the rogues, helping them coordinate attacks. Sarah's breath caught. Who? He never got the chance to tell me. But the night before he was arrested, he gave me something. Wren pulled a small leather pouch from his belt. He said if anything happened to him, I should find his daughter. That you would understand. He handed her the pouch. Inside was a ring, her father's signet ring, the one that marked him as a guard captain, and a folded piece of paper. Sarah's hands shook as she unfolded it. Her father's handwriting, rushed and messy. Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm gone. The conspiracy is bigger than I thought. The Shadow Collective isn't just rogues. They have allies in every major pack, including the Royal Guard. Trust no one except Samuel Wren. Find the king. He's the only one powerful enough to stand against what's coming. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry for everything. But I need you to survive. I need you to. The letter ended there, torn off mid-sentence. He died before he could finish it, Wren said softly. But he was right. The conspiracy nearly destroyed us. We lost half the Royal Guard to traitors. The king has been hunting them for years, trying to root them all out. That's why he was in the Forgotten Territories when the Shadow Collective ambushed him. He was meeting with an informant. Sarah looked down at the unconscious king, this massive predator who'd just killed to protect her, who'd called her his with absolute certainty. He knew my father, she whispered. Your father died protecting information that saved the king's life, Darius said, his voice softer now. Samuel Ashwood was no traitor. He was a hero. And it seems his daughter inherited his courage. Sarah's throat tightened. 15 years. 15 years of carrying the shame of her father's supposed betrayal, of being called traitor's daughter, of believing maybe he really had. The king will want to speak with you when he wakes, Wren said. He'll want to know everything you remember about your father's investigation. If he wakes, Sarah thought but didn't say. The fever was getting worse, and she'd used the last of her supplies days ago. As if reading her mind, Darius stood and addressed the guards. Kieran, Marcus, you're healed enough to travel. Take 2 others and head to the nearest Allied outpost. We need medical supplies, reinforcements, and a secure transport for the king. In this terrain? That's a 2-day journey minimum, Kieran protested. Then you'd better move fast. Darius's voice left no room for argument. The Shadow Collective knows where we are now. They'll send more. We need to be ready. As Kieran and the others prepared to leave, Sarah sat beside the king, one hand resting on his massive shoulder. His fur was burning hot beneath her palm, and she could feel his heartbeat, too fast, too irregular. Don't you dare die on me, she whispered. Not after that dramatic rescue. Not after calling me yours. The king's ear flicked, just once. And deep in her chest, something that had been cold and locked away for 5 years began, finally, to thaw. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 3. The king woke at dawn on the 7th day, and Sarah knew it before she even opened her eyes. The air in the cabin changed, became charged with something electric and dangerous. Every wolf still sleeping by the fire jerked awake simultaneously, their heads snapping toward the black wolf who was no longer lying down but sitting, those amber eyes open and aware and fixed directly on her. Sarah's heart kicked against her ribs. She was curled in her father's old chair, wrapped in a blanket, and she suddenly felt very small and very exposed. "My king." Darius was on his feet instantly, dropping to one knee. The other guards followed suit, Kira, Ren, the handful of others still recovering. "You're awake. Thank the old gods, you're..." The king ignored them all. He stood, shook himself once, and padded across the cabin towards Sarah with singular focus. She gripped the arms of her chair, forcing herself not to bolt. He was just a wolf. Just a very large, very powerful, very dangerous wolf who'd called her mine and then passed out for 3 days. No big deal. He stopped directly in front of her chair, so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Up close, his eyes were even more intense, amber shot through with veins of gold, ancient and knowing. He tilted his head, studying her with an expression that was far too intelligent for an animal. Then he did something that made every guard in the room suck in a breath. He lowered his head and rested it in her lap. The gesture was submissive. Trusting. From an alpha king who bowed to no one. Sarah's hands hovered uselessly in the air. Your Majesty. I don't think." The wolf huffed, a sound almost like amusement, and deliberately pushed his head more firmly against her legs. "He wants you to touch him," Kira said quietly, and there was something like awe in her voice. "He's courting you." "He's a wolf," Sarah protested weakly, even as her fingers betrayed her and sank into the thick fur behind his ears. It was softer than she expected, warm and alive beneath her touch. The king made a sound low in his chest, not quite a purr, but close. "He needs to shift," Darius said, his voice carefully neutral. "My king, if you would." The king pulled back from Sarah's touch just long enough to give Darius a look that clearly said, "I'll shift when I'm damn well ready," then returned his attention to her. His eyes were doing something strange, flickering between amber and that burning gold, like he was fighting to stay in wolf form when his human half wanted out. "Alexander." Captain Wren's voice was gentle but firm. "She can't understand you like this. If you want to speak with her properly, you need to shift." The name hit Sarah like a physical blow. Alexander. Alexander Voronar. The most feared wolf in the territories, the king who'd held power for 15 years through sheer dominance and calculated brutality. The stories about him were legend, how he'd killed his own uncle to take the throne at 19, how he'd crushed 3 separate rebellion attempts without mercy, how he'd once torn apart an entire pack for daring to challenge his authority. And this wolf, currently nuzzling her hand like an oversized puppy, was him. The king, Alexander, finally pulled back. He turned and padded toward the bedroom, and Sarah heard the door close. Moments later, a man's voice called out, rough from disuse, "Someone want to explain why I have no clothes?" "We salvaged what we could, my king," Darius called back. "The Omega has spares in the trunk by the..." "Found them." Sarah's mouth went dry. She should not be this nervous about seeing him in human form. She'd seen plenty of naked shifters over the past week. It was just a body. Just a man. But when Alexander Voronar walked out of her bedroom wearing her father's old pants and nothing else, every rational thought in her head evaporated. He was beautiful. Unfairly, devastatingly beautiful. Tall enough that he had to duck slightly under the cabin's doorframe, with shoulders that seemed to span half the room. His chest was a roadmap of scars, some old and faded, others newer, all of them doing nothing to diminish the raw power in every line of him. His hair was black as his wolf's fur, with those same silver streaks at the temples that should have made him look older but somehow didn't. And his face, sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and those eyes that were even more intense in human form. He looked like a warrior king from old stories. The kind that conquered nations and made empires kneel. And he was looking at her like she was the only person in the world. You, he said, his voice a deep rumble that she felt in her bones, are Sarah Ashwood. It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway. You saved my life. He took a step closer, and every guard in the room tensed. My guards' lives. You used your supplies, your knowledge, your home. Why? Because you were dying, Sarah said, finding her voice. All of you were. What was I supposed to do, let you bleed out on my porch? Most would have. Another step. He moved like liquid death, all grace and contained violence. Especially for rogues and strangers. You had no reason to trust us. Every reason to fear us. I did fear you. I do fear you. Sarah stood, refusing to cower in her own chair. But I'm a healer. It's what I do. Something flickered in his eyes, approval, maybe. Or hunger. And now I'm in your debt. You don't owe me anything. Just, get better and leave. Take your guards and go back to whatever king things you need to do. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Several guards shifted uncomfortably. Leave, Alexander repeated slowly, like he was testing the word. You want me to leave? Once you're strong enough, yes. The storm's passed. Your reinforcements are coming. There's no reason for you to stay. No reason. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Little Omega, I can think of several reasons. The endearment made her bristle. Don't call me that. Why not? It's what you are. It's not all I am. Sarah crossed her arms, forcing herself to hold his gaze even though every instinct screamed at her to look away, to submit. And I'm not yours. That thing you said while you were half-conscious and covered in blood? It doesn't count. The guards made various sounds of distress. Kira actually gasped. Alexander's expression didn't change, but the air around him began to pulse with power. It doesn't count, he repeated softly, dangerously. My Omega believes my claim doesn't count. I'm not your Omega. I'm not anyone's Omega. I've been claimed before, Your Majesty, and I won't go through that again. So thank you for the dramatic rescue, I'm glad you didn't die, but once you're healed. She didn't see him move. 1 second he was across the room, the next he was right in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Who? His voice was deadly quiet. Who claimed you? Sarah's heart hammered. This close, she could see the flecks of gold in his irises, could smell something wild and compelling that made her head swim. It doesn't matter. He's his name. Not a request. A command from an alpha king used to being obeyed. Something in her snapped. Beta Marcus Thorn of the Crescent Moon Pack. He decided I belonged to him, tried to force a bond, and when I refused, my pack chose him over me. Happy? Does that satisfy your kingly curiosity? Alexander's jaw clenched. Where is he now? How should I know? It was 5 years ago. I've been here ever since. Darius. Alexander didn't look away from Sarah. Find Beta Marcus Thorn of Crescent Moon. I want him found and brought to me. Alive, but just barely. My king. Now. Darius bowed and left quickly, taking 2 guards with him. You can't just, Sarah started, but Alexander cut her off. I can. I am the king. I can do whatever I want. His hand came up, and she flinched before she could stop herself. He froze, something like pain flashing across his face. When he moved again, it was slowly, carefully, his fingers barely brushing her cheek. And what I want is to erase the fear I see in these eyes. To find every person who hurt you and make them bleed. To keep you so safe, so protected, that you never have to be afraid again. Sarah's breath caught. His touch was gentle, reverent, completely at odds with the violence in his words. You don't even know me, she whispered. I know you saved my life when you had every reason to let me die. I know you're brave enough to stand in this room full of predators and tell a king to leave your home. I know my wolf recognized you the moment I saw you, and my wolf is never wrong. Your wolf is delusional. That almost smile flickered across his face again. Perhaps. But he's mine, which makes his delusions my responsibility. His thumb traced her cheekbone, and heat followed the touch. This cabin isn't safe anymore. The Shadow Collective knows we're here. They'll send more wolves, better prepared. I need to get you somewhere secure. This is my home. And I'll see it protected. But you're not staying here while there's a target on your head. His eyes held hers, and she saw the steel beneath the gentleness. That's not a request, Sarah. You're under my protection now. Whether you want it or not. Fury blazed through her, hot and cleansing. You arrogant, controlling. Yes, he agreed calmly. I'm all of those things. I'm also the only thing standing between you and the wolves who want you dead because you saved me. So you can hate me, fight me, reject me all you want. But you will stay alive. That's not negotiable. Sarah opened her mouth to tell him exactly where he could shove his protection when Kira's voice cut through the tension. My king. We have a problem. Alexander's hand dropped from Sarah's face, but he didn't step back. What kind of problem? Kira held up a piece of paper, her expression grim. We found this nailed to the back door. You should see it. Alexander took the paper, and Sarah watched his expression darken as he read. When he handed it to her, his jaw was clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. The handwriting made her knees weak. Sarah. They killed me. You're next. Run. It was her father's handwriting. Exact, perfect, unmistakable. She'd spent years staring at his letters, his notes, memorizing every loop and curve. That's impossible, she breathed. He's been dead for 15 years. Someone's copying his hand, Captain Wren said quietly, moving to stand beside them. Or they have something he wrote and they're tracing it. Either way, they're trying to scare her. Alexander's voice was cold with fury. They know who she is. They know about her father. Sarah's hands were shaking as she stared at the note. How? I've been careful. No one knows I'm Samuel Ashwood's daughter. I changed my name, The traitor knows. Alexander's eyes swept over his remaining guards, and the look on his face made several of them flinch. Someone here told the Shadow Collective exactly who she is. Someone here has been feeding them information. The accusation hung in the air like poison. The guards looked at each other, suspicion and fear warring on their faces. My king, surely not, Kira began, but Alexander silenced her with a look. Supply bags have gone missing. Sarah's protective wards were tampered with 2 nights ago. I felt it even in my sleep. And now this. He held up the note. Someone here is working with our enemies. Someone here wants my Omega dead. Don't call me that, Sarah said automatically, but her voice was weak. She was still staring at her father's handwriting. They killed me. Had he written those words before he died? Or was someone really sick enough to forge them? Everyone out. Alexander's command was absolute. Now. I need to speak with Sarah. Alone. The guards filed out, though Wren hesitated at the door. My king, if there's a traitor. Then I'll handle it. Go. When the door closed behind them, the cabin felt suddenly very small. Very intimate. Alexander was still too close, still watching her with that intense focus that made her feel stripped bare. You're terrified, he said quietly. I can smell it on you. Someone wants to kill me using my dead father's handwriting. Yes, I'm terrified. Of them, or of me? The question made her pause. She looked up at him, really looked, and saw something in his eyes that surprised her. Vulnerability. This king, this predator who commanded armies and crushed rebellions, was afraid she was scared of him. Both, she admitted. I don't know you. I don't know if I can trust you. And you're standing here talking about claiming me, protecting me, making decisions for me like you have the right. I don't have the right, Alexander interrupted, his voice rough. You're absolutely correct. I have no right to claim you, to make demands, to turn your life upside down. But my wolf doesn't care about rights or logic. He knows you're ours, and he won't rest until you're safe. Until you're happy. Your wolf is going to be disappointed. Perhaps. His hand came up again, slower this time, giving her every chance to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers tangled gently in her hair. But I'm a patient man when I need to be. And you, Sarah Ashwood, are worth being patient for. Sarah's heart was doing things it had no business doing. Stop, she whispered. Stop being this. Being what? Gentle. Kind. It's confusing. His laugh was quiet and genuinely amused. You expected a monster. The stories are mostly true, he finished for her. I've killed without mercy. I've made decisions that haunt me. I've been ruthless and cold and everything they say I am. But not with you. Never with you. You don't know me well enough to make that promise. My wolf does. That's enough. And that was the problem, wasn't it? He actually believed it. She could see the certainty in his eyes, feel it in the way he touched her like she was something precious. I can't do this, Sarah said, pulling away from his touch even though it hurt. Whatever this is, whatever your wolf thinks it feels, I can't. I won't be claimed again. I won't be owned. I don't want to own you. Alexander's voice was fierce. I want to earn you. There's a difference. The last man who claimed me said something similar. Right before he tried to force me. The air in the cabin turned arctic. Alexander's eyes bled to pure gold, his wolf rising dangerously close to the surface. I am not him. I will never, he cut himself off, visibly struggling for control. I would rather die than force you. You believe that, don't you? The scary thing was, she did. She could see the truth of it written in every line of his body, hear it in the raw honesty of his voice. It doesn't matter what I believe, she said tiredly. You're a king. I'm an exile. This can't work. Let me worry about. No. The word exploded out of her with more force than she intended. No. I'm not some prize to be won or a problem to be solved. I'm a person who's built a life here, away from packs and politics and alphas who think they know what's best for me. You need to accept that and leave. Alexander's jaw clenched. I can't. Can't or won't? Both. He took a step closer, and despite everything, she didn't retreat. There's a traitor in my guard. Whoever it is knows about you now, knows you're important to me. If I leave, they'll come for you. Then take the traitor with you. I don't know who it is yet. Until I do, everyone is suspect. Everyone is a threat. His eyes held hers, burning with intensity. I won't risk your life because you're angry with me. I won't. He stopped mid-sentence, his entire body going rigid. His eyes widened, the gold bleeding into amber so fast it was like watching a tide change. Sarah, he breathed. What are you feeling right now? Angry. Frustrated. Scared. Why? Then it hit her. It slammed into her chest like a physical blow, foreign emotions that weren't hers crashing through her barriers. Desperation. Fierce protectiveness. Terror at the thought of losing something precious. Need so intense it bordered on pain. His emotions. She was feeling his emotions. No, Sarah gasped, stumbling backward. No, no, no. But it was too late. The mate bond, dormant until now, awakened by the intensity of their argument, snapped into place with violent force. And with it came the memories. She saw through Alexander's eyes, felt what he felt, lived moments of his life in fragmented flashes. A throne room. Blood on marble floors. A man kneeling, hands bound, fear and defiance warring in his eyes. "I'm innocent," the man said. "I swear on my daughter's life, I didn't betray." "The evidence is clear," Alexander's voice, younger but already cold with authority. "Samuel Ashwood, you are found guilty of treason against the crown. The sentence is death." "My daughter," the man, her father, whispered as the sword fell. "Sarah. Tell her." Sarah's scream shattered the air. She fell to her knees, clutching her head as more memories flooded through. Her father's body, lifeless. Alexander turning away, already thinking of the next crisis, never looking back. Years later, a report on his desk. The Ashwood Omega was exiled from Crescent Moon. Last seen heading toward the Forgotten Territories. Alexander's disinterest, monitor the situation. Inform me if she becomes a threat. You killed him. Sarah's voice was raw, broken. You killed my father. Alexander had gone pale, his eyes wide with horror as he felt what she was feeling, saw what she was seeing through their new bond. Sarah, I didn't know. You killed him. She was screaming now, rage and grief tearing through her. He was innocent. He was trying to save you, trying to warn you, and you killed him. The evidence was fake. It was all fake, and you were too cold, too eager to make an example to see the truth. She could barely breathe through the sobs. He died saying my name. Did you know that? His last words were about me, and you didn't even care. Sarah, please, Alexander reached for her, but she scrambled back like he was poison. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. The bond. I reject it. The words came out with vicious certainty. I reject you. I reject this bond. I reject everything about you. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Alexander doubled over like she'd stabbed him, a sound of pure agony tearing from his throat. The bond between them, so new, so fragile, began to fray and burn. Sarah, stop, he gasped. You'll kill us both. Good. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. Good. Let it kill me. I don't want this. I don't want you. I want my father back, and you took him from me. Through the bond, she felt his anguish. Felt his horror as he realized what he'd done, who he'd killed. Felt his desperate need to fix this, to make it right, warring with the knowledge that nothing could ever make this right. And underneath it all, she felt him starting to break. The rejection was working. The bond was tearing itself apart, and it was taking them both with it. Sarah. His voice was barely a whisper now. He was on his knees, one hand pressed over his heart. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I would take it back if I could. I would give my life to take it back. I don't want your apologies. She could feel her own heart fracturing, pain spreading through her chest like wildfire. I want you gone. I want you out of my head, out of my life, out of... She couldn't finish. The pain was too much. She collapsed, and the last thing she saw before darkness took her was Alexander crawling toward her, reaching for her with blood-stained hands, his voice breaking on her name. Then nothing. Just endless, merciful nothing. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. Sarah woke to pain. Not the sharp, sudden kind, this was worse. A deep, grinding ache that radiated from her chest outward, like her ribcage was being slowly crushed. Every breath hurt. Every heartbeat felt wrong, arrhythmic, like her body was forgetting how to function. The bond. The rejected bond was killing her. Don't move. Alexander's voice, rough and strained. Please, just, don't move. She turned her head and immediately regretted it. He was sitting on the floor beside the bed, her bed, she was in her own room, and he looked like death. His skin was gray, his eyes sunken, and blood trickled from his nose. When he lifted his hand to wipe it away, the movement was shaky. You look terrible, Sarah croaked. You should see yourself. But there was no humor in his voice. Just exhaustion and pain. It's been 2 days. Kira said if you didn't wake soon. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Why are you here? The words came out harsher than she intended, but the anger was still there, buried under the pain. I told you to leave. I can't. Alexander's laugh was bitter. Tried. Made it about 50 feet from the cabin before I collapsed. Turns out a rejected mate bond doesn't care about pride or guilt. It just knows we're supposed to be together, and it's punishing us both for fighting it. Sarah closed her eyes. She could feel him through the bond, feel his pain matching hers, feel his guilt like acid in her veins, feel his desperate need to fix what he'd broken. It was too much. Too intimate. She wanted to shove him out of her head, but every time she tried, the pain spiked. My father, she whispered. You killed him. Yes. No excuses. No justifications. Just that single, damning word. He was innocent. I know that now. I've known for years. Alexander's voice cracked. I found the evidence, the real evidence, 3 years after his execution. Someone had planted false documents, forged communications, built an entire web of lies. By the time I uncovered the truth, it was too late. He was gone. And you. He swallowed hard. You were already in exile. Already suffering because of my failure. Sarah forced her eyes open. Who did it? My brother. Prince Dmitri. The name came out like poison. He's been working with the Shadow Collective for decades. Your father discovered the conspiracy, found proof that Dmitri was selling PAC secrets, arranging attacks, destabilizing the territories. So Dmitri framed him first, made sure he'd die before he could talk. And you believed it. You believed the lies. I did. Alexander's hands clenched into fists. I was young, arrogant, so sure I knew best. The evidence seemed solid. And Dmitri was my brother, my own blood. I never thought. He stopped, jaw working. I've made many mistakes as king. But killing your father is the one that haunts me most. Not because of what it means for us, for this bond, but because he was a good man. An honorable man. And he died believing I'd betrayed everything he stood for. The grief in his voice was real. Sarah could feel it through the bond, could sense that he meant every word. But it didn't make her father any less dead. I hate you, she said quietly. I know. I don't want this bond. I know that too. But it's killing us both. Yes. Alexander met her eyes, and she saw resignation there. Acceptance. If you want to keep fighting it, I'll fight with you. We'll die together. Maybe that's justice, the king who killed your father dying by your choice. Maybe that's what I deserve. Don't. Sarah's voice was sharp. Don't make this about martyrdom. Don't make it noble. Then what do you want me to say? I want you to tell me why I can feel you in my head. The words burst out of her, raw with frustration. I want you to tell me why every time you hurt, I hurt. Why every time you feel guilty, I feel it too. Why I can't even be properly angry because I can feel how much you regret it. That's the bond. Alexander's voice was gentle. It doesn't care about what's fair or right. It just exists. And now that it's awake, now that we've acknowledged it, it won't let us go. Then I'll break it. It will kill you. It will kill us both. Maybe I don't care. Liar. He said it softly, without accusation. You're a healer, Sarah. You care about life, even lives you have reason to hate. It's who you are. She wanted to argue, but a wave of pain chose that moment to crash through her. She gasped, curling in on herself, and immediately felt Alexander's answering agony through the bond. Stop fighting it, he gritted out. Just for now. Just let it stabilize so we're not both dying. I can't. You can. You don't have to forgive me. You don't have to want me. Just, stop actively rejecting it. Please. The please did it. Not because it was manipulation, but because she could feel how much it cost him, this proud alpha king, to beg. Sarah let out a shaking breath and stopped fighting. Stopped pushing against the bond, stopped trying to sever it. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. The pain didn't disappear, but it dulled to something manageable. And the emotions flooded in. His guilt was a living thing, eating him from the inside. His fear for her life was visceral, primal. But underneath it all was something else, something that felt like coming home, like rightness, like a piece of himself he hadn't known was missing suddenly clicking into place. I feel it too, she whispered. This, whatever this is. The bond recognizing its other half. I don't want it. I know. Alexander stood slowly, like an old man, and moved toward the door. I'll sleep in the main room. Give you space. But I can't leave the cabin. Not without killing us both. He was at the threshold when Sarah spoke again. Your brother. Dmitri. Where is he now? Alexander paused. Hunting me. That's why I was in the Forgotten Territories. I'd received intel that he was meeting with Shadow Collective leaders here. I came to gather evidence, to finally end this. Instead, I walked into an ambush. His hand gripped the doorframe. He thinks I'm dead. Thinks his assassins finished the job. In 3 days, there's an Alpha Summit at the Royal Court. Every pack leader in the territories will be there. Without me to stop him, Dmitri will make his move. He'll claim the throne, and with the Shadow Collective backing him. Thousands will die, Sarah finished quietly. At minimum. Dmitri doesn't want to rule, he wants to conquer. Every pack that resists will be eliminated. Every wolf that doesn't bow will be killed. He'll turn the territories into a war zone. Sarah's chest tightened. Then you need to stop him. I can't. Alexander's laugh was hollow. The curse wounds, the dark magic from the ambush, I purged most of it, but there's still poison in my system. I'm weak. Probably will be for weeks. By then, it will be too late. You have guards. Ren, Darius, Kira. Can't fight an army with 10 wolves. And we can't trust all of them. His voice dropped. There's still a traitor among my guards. Someone who led us into that ambush. Someone who told the Shadow Collective about you. As if summoned by the words, a commotion erupted from the main room. Shouting. A crash. Then Kira's voice, sharp with command, get on your knees. Now. Sarah and Alexander moved as one, both of them ignoring their bodies' protests. When they stumbled into the main room, they found the guards in chaos. Half of them had shifted to wolf form, the other half standing with weapons drawn. Captain Ren was on his knees in the center of the room, his hands behind his head. His face was a mask of anguish. My king, he said, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. Alexander's expression went cold. You. I didn't want to. Tears streamed down Ren's face. I swear on my life, I never wanted to betray you. But they have them. They have Elena and the children. Dmitri took them 3 months ago, said if I didn't feed him information, he'd kill them slowly. Make me listen to them scream. The cabin fell silent. Your family, Alexander said flatly. You betrayed me, got half my guard killed, for your family. Yes. Ren didn't flinch from the accusation. And I'd do it again. I'd betray anyone, anything, to keep them alive. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for death. Kill me quickly, and I'll tell you everything I know about Dimitri's plans first. Where are they? Sarah found herself speaking before she could stop herself. Your family. Where is Dimitri holding them? Ren's eyes found hers, surprised. The Black Citadel. His fortress in the Shadow Peaks. It's warded against attack, crawling with Shadow Collective soldiers. There's no way to. There's always a way, Alexander interrupted. His voice was still cold, but Sarah could feel something shifting in him through the bond. Calculation. Strategy. How many hostages does he have? Dozens. He's been collecting leverage for years. Guards' families, pack leaders' children, anyone he could use as a weapon. Ren's hands were shaking. The message in Ashwood's handwriting, that was me. I left it. I was trying to warn her without being obvious, trying to give her a chance to run before. He stopped, his face crumpling. Before what? Sarah demanded. Before they came for you. Ren looked at her with devastated eyes. Dimitri knows what you are to the king. He's been planning your capture since I told him about you. He wants to use you against Alexander, wants to parade you in front of the summit as proof that the king is weak. That he can be manipulated through his mate. Alexander's growl was inhuman. He touches her and I'll. You'll what? Kira snapped. You can barely stand. The curse poison is still killing you slowly. Ren's right, you're weak. We all are. We can't fight Dimitri's army. We can't even get to the royal court without being ambushed again. Then we don't fight, Sarah said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at her. Explain, Alexander said. Sarah's mind was racing, pieces clicking together. The poison in your system, it's dark magic, yes? Shadow Collective work? Yes. Why? Because I can purge it. She met his eyes. Completely. But it's dangerous. The ritual requires sacrifice. Life force. You'd be healed, but I'd be. No. Alexander's voice was absolute. Absolutely not. We'll find another way. There is no other way. Sarah's hands clenched. You said it yourself, you have 3 days before Dimitri takes the throne. 3 days before he starts a war that will kill thousands. Your guards are wounded, your army thinks you're dead, and you're too weak to fight. But if I heal you, really heal you, you'd be strong enough to stop him. At the cost of your life. At the cost of some of my life force, she corrected. I'd be weak for a while, but I'd recover. Probably. Probably. He said it like a curse. No. I won't let you risk yourself for me. Not after everything I've taken from you. This isn't about you. The words came out sharper than she intended. This is about those hostages. About Ren's family and whoever else Dimitri is using as leverage. It's about stopping a tyrant from taking power. Her voice softened. And maybe it's about saving my father. The cabin went dead silent. What? Alexander's voice was barely a whisper. Sarah turned to Ren, her heart pounding. The message. They killed me. You're next. That's not a threat, it's a clue. My father isn't dead, is he? Dimitri has him. Ren's face confirmed it before he spoke. The Black Citadel. I didn't know until recently, but, yes. Samuel Ashwood is alive. Barely. Dimitri's been keeping him in a cursed prison, using his suffering to fuel dark magic rituals. I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you, wanted to. He didn't get to finish. Sarah had crossed the room and grabbed him by the collar, strength she didn't know she had flooding her limbs. How long? She demanded. How long has he been there? 5 years. Ren's voice cracked. Since shortly after your exile. Dmitri faked his execution, kept him alive in secret. I don't know why. I don't know what he's planning. But your father is alive, Sarah. He's alive. The world tilted. 5 years. Her father had been suffering for 5 years while she lived in exile, believing him dead. While she mourned him, hated Alexander for killing him, built a life around the grief of losing him, he'd been alive. Alive and in pain. Sarah's vision blurred with tears. I'm doing the ritual. Now. Sarah, Alexander started, but she cut him off. My father is alive. Your brother is about to start a war. And I'm the only one who can fix this. She met his eyes, and something in her gaze made him flinch. So you're going to let me heal you? Then you're going to march into that summit and take back your throne. And then we're going to the Black Citadel, and we're getting my father out. You're insane, Kira said, but there was respect in her voice. Probably. Sarah turned to the other guards. I need supplies. Silver root, moonstone powder, blessed salt. Ren, you're going to tell me everything about the Citadel's defenses. Darius, start planning our route to the royal court. Kira, she paused. Can you fight? I can barely walk, Kira admitted. But I can kill. If that's what you're asking. It is. Sarah looked at each of them in turn. We have 3 days to heal, prepare, and travel to the royal court. 3 days to stop a coup and save hostages. Anyone who's not up for that can leave now. No one moved. Good. Sarah turned back to Alexander. Come on. We're starting the ritual. I didn't agree to this, he protested, but he was already following her toward the bedroom. You don't get a choice. She closed the door behind them and started pulling ingredients from her shelves. Your brother has my father. He's planning to murder pack leaders and start a war. And you're the only one who can stop him. So sit down, shut up, and let me save your life. Alexander caught her wrist, spinning her to face him. If you die doing this. I won't. But if you do. Then you make sure it counts. Sarah's voice was fierce. You stop Dmitri. You save those hostages. You get my father out. Promise me. Their eyes locked, and something passed between them through the bond. Understanding. Agreement. A pact sealed in desperation and necessity. I promise, Alexander said quietly. But know this, Sarah Ashwood, if you die saving me, I will follow you into death. The bond won't let me exist without you anyway. So you'd better survive, because I refuse to let Dmitri win by default. How romantic, she muttered, but her hands were shaking as she began drawing ritual circles on the floor. Take off your shirt and sit in the center. The ritual took 3 hours. Sarah chanted in the old language, her hands glowing with silver light as she pulled the dark magic from Alexander's body. It resisted, fought back, trying to latch onto her instead. She gritted her teeth and pulled harder, feeling her own life force flowing out to replace the poison. Pain. Exhaustion. The world graying at the edges. But she didn't stop. Alexander's body arced as the last of the curse burned away. He was glowing now, his alpha power flooding back in waves that made the cabin shake. She could see his wounds healing in real time, muscle and tissue knitting together, scars fading to nothing. He was magnificent. Terrifying and beautiful and impossibly strong. And she was dying. Sarah. His voice seemed to come from very far away. Sarah, stop. You've done enough. Almost, finished. Her knees buckled. The world tilted. Strong arms caught her. Alexander's scent surrounded her, pine and winter wind and something wild. She felt him pouring his own strength back into her through the bond, refusing to let her fade. Don't you dare, he growled against her hair. Don't you dare leave me now. Bossy, Alpha. She mumbled. Then the attack came. The front wall of the cabin exploded inward. Wolves poured through, dozens of them, all wearing the Shadow Collective's mark. And behind them, striding through the wreckage like he owned it, was a man who looked so much like Alexander it was startling. Except his eyes were cruel. Empty. Hello, brother, Prince Dmitri said with a smile. Surprise. You're harder to kill than I expected. Alexander set Sarah down carefully and stood. The movement was fluid, powerful, the curse completely purged. He looked every inch the Alpha King now, dangerous and deadly. Dmitri. His voice was ice. This ends today. Oh, it certainly does. Dmitri's smile widened. I brought friends. More wolves flooded in. Too many. Even with Alexander at full strength, even with the guards fighting, they were outnumbered 5-1. Sarah tried to stand, to help, but her legs wouldn't support her. She'd given too much. Taken too much of the curse into herself to purge it from Alexander. A Shadow Collective wolf lunged for her. She raised her hands uselessly. And Alexander was there, his hybrid form emerging in an explosion of power. He tore the wolf apart, then another, then 3 more. But for every one he killed, 2 more appeared. They were losing. Enough. Dmitri's voice cut through the chaos. Stop, or I give the order. And Samuel Ashwood dies screaming. Everyone froze. Dmitri pulled out a communication stone, its surface glowing sickly green. One word from me, and my people at the Black Citadel start the execution. Slowly. Painfully. While you listen. Sarah's heart stopped. Don't. The infamous daughter. Dmitri's eyes found her, and something in his gaze made her skin crawl. You're prettier than I expected. Father always said you looked like your mother. He talks about you constantly. Sarah this, Sarah that. Quite touching, really. Let him go, Sarah said, her voice shaking. Please. He's suffered enough. Oh, but his suffering is so useful. Dmitri's smile was vicious. Did you know that a healer's pain makes the best fuel for dark magic? Especially when they're being tortured specifically because of what they can heal. The irony is delicious. Alexander's growl was inhuman. I'm going to rip your throat out. No, you're not. Because if you try, Daddy dies. Dmitri held up the stone. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to surrender. Your guards are going to stand down. And your pretty little maid is going to come with me. If you cooperate, I'll let Samuel live. Maybe even let him see his daughter one last time before I kill you both. Don't do it, Ren said urgently. My king, he's lying. He'll kill them anyway. Shut up, traitor. Dmitri didn't even look at him. Well, brother? What's it going to be? Your throne or her father's life? Sarah felt Alexander's struggle through the bond. Felt his rage warring with his desperate need to keep her safe. Felt him calculating odds, searching for a way out. There wasn't one. Alexander. Sarah's voice was quiet. I have an idea. But you have to trust me. Always, he said without hesitation. Through the bond, she showed him what she was thinking. Felt his shock, his horror, his reluctant understanding. It will kill you, he said. Maybe. Or maybe it will save us all. Sarah took a breath and made her choice. I'll come with you, she told Dmitri. But first, I want something. Dmitri's eyebrows rose. You're hardly in a position to negotiate. I want to accept the mate bond. Fully. Completely. She looked at Alexander. Right now. The cabin erupted in chaos. Dmitri was shouting something, the Shadow Collective wolves were advancing, but Sarah ignored them all. She focused on Alexander, on the bond between them, and opened herself to it completely. Not just acceptance. Surrender. The bond roared to life like a wildfire. Sarah gasped as power flooded through her. Alexander's power, yes, but something else too. Something that had been sleeping inside her all along, waiting for this moment. Her Omega nature wasn't weakness. It was strength. Raw, primal, ancient strength that complemented Alexander's alpha power, that merged with it, amplified it. Together, they were unstoppable. Sarah's eyes snapped open, glowing silver. When she spoke, her voice resonated with power that shook the cabin's foundations. "You want me, Dimitri? Come and take me." Dimitri's smile faltered. What? The combined power of a true mated pair, Alpha King and his Omega, exploded outward. Shadow Collective wolves were thrown backward, smashing through walls. Dark magic unraveled like burning thread. And Dimitri himself staggered, his communication stone cracking in his hand. Alexander shifted into his hybrid form again, but this time, he was wreathed in silver light, Sarah's light. Their power moved as one, devastating and precise. The battle was over in minutes. When the last Shadow Collective wolf fell, Dimitri was on his knees, blood streaming from his nose. His eyes were wide with shock. "Impossible," he whispered. "This power, it shouldn't be possible." Alexander stood over him, claws at his throat. "You're done, brother. Your coup failed. Your army is broken. And you're going to tell me exactly where you're holding those hostages before I tear you apart." But Sarah wasn't listening to the interrogation. She was staring at her hands, watching silver light dance across her skin. The power thrumming through her veins felt ancient. Familiar. Like something she'd always known but never accessed. Kira was staring at her, her expression stunned. That light. That power. I've only seen it described in old texts. What? Sarah demanded. What is it? You're a lunar Omega. Kira's voice was hushed, reverent. Born once every 1,000 years. The legends say a lunar Omega doesn't just heal, she can reshape pack bonds, command alphas, even. She paused, her eyes flicking to Alexander. Even overthrow an Alpha King and rule alone. The cabin fell silent. Sarah looked at Alexander. Through the bond, she felt his lack of surprise. His resignation. "You knew," she breathed. "You knew what I was." Alexander met her eyes. "I suspected. The moment I saw you, my wolf recognized something. And when you healed me so effortlessly, when you survived in the forgotten territories alone." He swallowed hard. "Yes. I knew there was a possibility. And you said nothing. What was I supposed to say?" His voice was raw. "That you were powerful enough to destroy me? That ancient prophecy says you could take everything I am if you wanted? You already hated me, Sarah. I wasn't going to give you another reason." Sarah's mind reeled. A lunar Omega. Powerful enough to rule alone. Powerful enough to... "My father," she said suddenly. "We're wasting time. Dimitri, where is he?" Dimitri laughed, the sound broken and bitter. "The Black Citadel. Top floor, western wing. But you'll never reach him in time. Even with your newfound power, my wards will fall," Sarah finished. "Because I'm not just any Omega anymore. Am I?" She looked at Alexander. At the guards watching her with a mixture of fear and awe. At Dimitri bleeding on the floor. "We're getting my father back," she said. "All of us. And then we're going to the royal court. You're going to take back your throne." She met Alexander's eyes. "And I'm going to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do with all this power." "Whatever you want," Alexander said quietly. "It's your choice, Sarah. It always has been. I won't force you into anything, not the bond, not a crown, not a future you don't want. Even if the prophecy says you could rule alone. He took a breath. Then rule alone. I'll step aside. I'll give you everything if that's what it takes to make this right. Sarah stared at him. At this alpha king who'd killed her father, who'd captured her heart against her will, who was now offering to give up his throne for her. The question hung in the air between them, unanswered. What did she want? The answer, she realized as dawn light filtered through the ruined cabin, was simple. She wanted her father back. She wanted justice. She wanted to stop Dimitri's war. And then she'd decide what to do with a king who looked at her like she held his entire world in her hands. Let's go, she said. We have a citadel to storm and a father to save. As they prepared to leave, as the guards rallied and Alexander gave orders with renewed strength, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The prophecy of the lunar Omega whispered in her mind, ancient and inevitable. She who can heal can also destroy. She who can submit can also rule. And when the moon calls her name, even the Alpha King will kneel. Sarah touched the bond connecting her to Alexander and felt its strength, its permanence. For better or worse, their fates were tied now. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe and like this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also, to appreciate this community too. I would like to know the country in which you are in, listening to this story. Which country is that? Please comment below.